Hello and welcome back to my channel where I give you my 2 cents on all things TV and film and more. And today we are talking about episode 13 of All American, the season finale. I have a ton of notes and a lot of things to cover, so let's just jump right into it. Okay, first up, the actual episode. Now, was I surprised? No, but it's not because I was quietly predicting things and was completely right. It's just because, I can admit I've watched a lot of television and I've seen a lot of things, and there's just certain things where I just know what's going to happen. And so the things like who ended up with who in the end and all of that kind of stuff, that wasn't really surprising to me. The fact that it ended on a cliffhanger, I'm not surprised by that at all either. I mean, this is a show where they went in with an episode of a big game, had a fight at the end of the episode, and we didn't even get to see the game. So, was that cliffhanger shocking to me? Absolutely not. I was even cheering it on. Like when the ball was in the air, I was literally like, cut to black, cut to black, cut to black. And then it did, and I was like, yes. And then I instantly regretted it because I low key wanted to know who won the game. So, yeah, I guess I have mixed feelings on that entire thing. I think the one thing that was shocking was the fact that this was not a season finale that also could serve as a series finale. This definitely felt like a season finale. I don't know. Actually, I do know that it hasn't been renewed, and the people who wrote the show don't know if it's been renewed yet. The way that it was written makes me feel like they have high hopes that they will get a season 8, which I'll just say is very interesting. Now let's talk about our infamous love square. So we started this season off with Tori crushing on KJ and KJ crushing on Amina and Amina crushing on Khalil, and in the end it's Khalil in love with Amina. Amina finding out that she has feelings for KJ, but KJ and Tori actually making a go at a real relationship. It's a mess. And we are in that nobody is on the same page era of these relationships. And I like the mess, so I'm here for it. And I can be okay with them being, not on the same page and in that era when you consider the potential for a new season, because this is actually where we want them in terms of like who's endgame with who and stuff like that. So, do I think that KJ and Tori will last? No. They're young and they're gonna figure it out, but they need to figure it out. Um, and it might not be fun to watch if there's another season, but it's what needs to happen, especially if KJ and Amina are actually endgame. Question: is Jordan going to be the new coach of Crenshaw? Because there was some vibes there that leads me to believe the answer to that question is yes, but obviously, who knows? And then Layla going on tour. To be completely honest, I have mixed feelings about this because have we not wanted her, or at least have I not wanted her to get back in her music? Yes, I definitely have. Am I excited about her going back on tour? Yes, but also that means that she's leaving. And do I really want that? But then again, are we really going to see it, or is this going to be some kind of like time jump situation? Or is she going to go, but not for the whole 6 months? Questions that need answers. Okay, now let's get into the season as a whole, which is probably going to be the bulk of this video. But I do want to preface this by saying that I have seen all of Degrassi and all of Grey's Anatomy multiple times, and I still watch Grey's Anatomy, like the new seasons. And if you don't understand what I'm trying to say here, basically that just means that I, on more than one occasion, have watched a show that has been through multiple eras of casting. And because I've been here before, it does not faze me. And that is the era that this show is in right now, which is why I probably feel differently than some people do about all of the changes that have happened with this season. Now that we got that layer of foundation taken care of, I hope that that helps you understand what I'm about to say. If you were to ask me to rate this season, I would give it a 3 out of 5. It was nothing spectacular, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. And trust me when I say this, I've watched a lot of television shows. This is not the worst thing that I've ever seen. This show basically gave itself a mini reboot, and while it is not a fresh new season 1 of a television show, because of the mini reboot, it kind of sort of is. And I hope that makes sense. Because when you do this mini reboot and you're bringing in new cast members, obviously there's new people, new personalities, different relationships, and that all brings a new dynamic to the show. And that is something that everyone is going to have to get used to, and it's also something that isn't going to be perfectly amazing immediately. There's definitely a period of time where everyone is just figuring things out. They're trying to lay the foundation, see what works, and see what doesn't work. That's what happens in a season 1 of a television show, and that's basically what happened in this season of this television show because of all the changes that have been made. Speaking of things that didn't work, there are a few things that did stand out to me while I was watching this season. The first of them being making Amina's storyline and everything that had to do with her and her mom more so about Coop and less about Amina and even Preach. And yeah, I know that Coop was involved in that whole situation, and this definitely felt like an everyone needs closure type of situation, but I noticed that there was an absence of Preach in this whole thing, and the lack of conversation between him and Amina takes away from Amina's emotional journey in this whole thing. That's her actual mother, and she is the reason why all of this is being resurfaced. And she will be the reason why it'll all get put to bed. And it was more so Coop found her closure and had a conversation with Amina. We didn't see anything that Amina was dealing with for the most part, except for her acting out. And we didn't see a conversation with Amina and Preach, and then that was it. So yeah, that was one of the things that could have been done better. The other thing that I noticed is that there was a lack of female friendships, especially between the teenagers in this season, and that is confusing to me because they've never seemed to have that problem before. I mean, of course, you have Layla and Olivia, and then Patience is involved in that. Jamie came on after a while, and even though, especially with Layla and Olivia, they had their ups and downs, they still were good friends by the end of it and ended up becoming sister-in-laws. So it's confusing to me why that was absent from this season, and I think that it would have made a major difference and it would have helped, especially with the characters of Amina and Tori, because a lot of what they did, even though there were other things going on with them, a lot of it had to just do with the boys and like the attachment of their relationship and crushes and things like that on these guys. And I feel like they just needed the female friendship apart from the dudes, and that would have helped out a lot with them and how they're being portrayed and their storyline. And the last thing I wanted to talk about that didn't really stick for me was the pacing. I know I've said in the past that this show can be a slow burn, but it felt much slower this season. Like I said, I know they had to lay that foundation because there was a lot of fresh and newness in it, but I did feel like a lot of things, like the stuff going on with Khalil and his dad, Jordan and the whole uncle saga, Jordan being hurt and finding out that Cassius is the one who is his cousin, could have all happened at the mid-season point of the show. And I just feel like they wanted it to happen in the end of the season, but it didn't really need to, and I feel like it would have been better for it to happen at the midway point, and then there could be time exploring how Jordan feels about the whole thing and dealing with Cassius. Like, that's a cliffhanger that was part of the finale, because they have not worked anything out, and of course it's going to take time, but it would have been nice to give it more time in this season. And even like the Khalil stuff, like I said, Jordan, if Jordan was bound to get hurt and all of that had to come out, then like the climax of it should have been the midway point, and then we see in the second half of the season the result of everything instead of it being like the last 2-3 episodes. Now, I do think that there are things that the show could have done, and that I think if they get another season that they could still do in order to make it better or just be better or try to get better, because like I said, this felt like such a mini reboot, and I know they said in interviews before the season started that they were focusing on this new generation and going back to high school football, but I feel like they could have done a better job at like really honing that in. And so I'm going to explain just a couple of things that they could have done. I hope it all makes sense to everyone. So like I said earlier, I've watched all of Degrassi, and by all of Degrassi, I really do mean every iteration, like junior high, high, the next generation, and the next class. I watched them multiple times, and I think that there are a lot of lessons, well, very specific lessons, that the show could have taken from Degrassi that would help them in this interesting era that they're in right now as they are trying to do something fresh and bring and have new people in the cast. I do have to say first that I apologize to anyone who has not seen Degrassi. I'm going to do my best to explain everything. Not the plot of the show, but you know what I mean. So, the first thing that I think All American could have done was work on the promo. Um, During seasons like 7 and 8, pretty much the original characters of Degrassi that started off with season 1 of The Next Generation were graduated and leaving the show. And this was their time to like mini reboot themselves. And one of the things that they ended up eventually doing was making such an epic promo that it's something that we still talk about today, many, many years later. And it was something that we hadn't seen from them before. It highlighted all of the new characters, and I don't know the numbers, but I'm willing to bet that there are people that never watched Degrassi that saw that promo and tuned in at least to the first episode of that season. I remember being such a longtime fan and seeing that promo, and no, I didn't know who any of those people were because they were all new, but it did get me excited for this show like it did when it first came out. So it worked. So I definitely think that All American, in whatever interviews that they were giving, especially the writers, could have really stressed how, because of the new people coming in, that this is a good starting point for people who have always been interested in the show but have never tuned in to tune into. Um, and you wouldn't really be completely confused because of the amount of original characters that are there and just like the focus that they wanted to take on it, bringing in all of these new kids and going back to high school. And so they could have at least tried to bring in new eyes and show people that things are changing, while it's still going to be an all American show. And yeah, this is season 7. This is the like new rebirth time of this season and or of this series. And so if you haven't watched before, you can, and you won't be confused. If you want to go back and watch all of the seasons, you can, because they're all on Netflix, but it's not necessarily a thing that you have to do if you've never not once seen the show before. And that would also give a lot of us original characters an idea on where the direction was going, because even myself, it kind of felt like the original characters would still be the main focus of the show because they're still there and we've been with them for 6 seasons. But I think what they were trying to do was focus on the high schoolers, and that's why we didn't see some of our OG characters in every episode and being the focus of the episodes. And if they gave us that indication earlier on, then we wouldn't go in with the expectation that the high schoolers would be side characters and that the OG characters were still going to really be like in that main role. I would kind of equate it to the fact that the adults in Degrassi The Next Generation were students of Degrassi, and we saw that in the junior high and high iterations of the show. But you don't have to watch those iterations in order to enjoy The Next Generation. Um, it's like seasons 1 through 6 were kind of like Degrassi high and junior high and high, and season 7 is kind of like The Next Generation minus the big time jump in between the Degrassi shows. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I think that would have helped going into this new mini reboot season, whatever you want to call it, for these two groups of people to still be able to enjoy the show because they know what they're getting firsthand, and there's no confusion and there's no expectations that they could have that could possibly be wrong, and then everyone's upset because what they thought was going to happen didn't happen. We know what we're getting into. They told us straight up explicitly, and that's what it's going to be. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about is a name change. I'm not suggesting that they completely change the name from All American, but what I am suggesting is that they could have benefited from a tag at the end of it: next class, next generation, new generation, something that is like a very clear indicator that things are changing. And while people that you know and love, you're still going to see their faces, there are going to be quite a few fresh faces. Keeping with the comparison to Degrassi, the show could have just been called Degrassi across all of the years that it was on the air. But we have junior high, we have high, we have the next generation, we have the next class. And even within the 14 seasons of the next generation, there still was a point in time where they dropped that tag off and just called itself Degrassi. And because of what I know about the show and the history of it, I know that they did that on purpose to give it a fresh take and to indicate that they're trying to make it fresher and more modern and different things like that. So I also think that adding a tag onto All American to indicate that would have really helped, because what you're basically saying is that yes, this is the same All American, the foundation is still there, we're just trying to do something new and fresh, and we're making it clear to you with our name. And then when you have that with like the promo and all of the things that they're saying in articles and stuff, it really helps. So basically the TLDR of all that was that there should have been explicit indicators to tell the audience that this is pretty much a mini reboot. Like I've been saying, this is a fresh take. The foundation will always be there. Yeah, this is going to be the same All American, but with these markers, we're telling you explicitly that they're fresh faces, things are going to look different, changes are going to be made, but it's still going to be reminiscent of the same show that you know and love. Yeah, and I say all that and I hope it makes sense, and if it doesn't make sense, I'm here to explain more to you in the comments or wherever, so you can ask me questions and we can continue the conversation. And I will end this by saying that there are very specific things that would make me not want to watch a show again, and it kind of does take a lot and a while for me to get to that point. I did say earlier that I still watch Grey's Anatomy. Obviously, it will take a long while, because if you watch the show, you know just how many different faces we've seen. So if there is a season 8 cough cough final cough cough, will I watch? Most likely, yeah. And I'm just a nosy person, so I'm gonna be intrigued to see what it'll look like anyway. And like I said, like if it's something that happens that I don't want to see, then I will discontinue. But 8th and final, maybe? What do you think? So we have come to the end of the road of season 7 of All American. Those are all my thoughts that I have finally gotten out of my head over the course of these few weeks when I've started thinking about the finale. And as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments. We can have a conversation about it. I'll remind you, because I haven't said this in a while, be civil or be blocked. And yes, this is the end. We don't know what's going to happen next. And I don't know what I'm going to do next, if there even is another season. It was nice to review these episodes every week. It's going to be weird that there isn't going to be one of these next week. I will welcome the break though, and I hope you will enjoy the hiatus maybe, and we'll just see what happens next. And if you are still interested in hearing my 2 cents on all things TV and film and books and all kinds of stuff, you can subscribe to this. You can follow me on social media. I put all of that in the description. So you can look me up on there and follow me, and we can continue to talk about all of the shows and movies and things like that that we have in common. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Maybe in the All American Universe world, maybe because of another TV show. Bye.